In the 1980s, the Danish government, their Ministry of Education, decided to, they were frustrated with the direction of sociology in Denmark, specifically at Copenhagen University, which had two sociology departments at the time. When we're talking about Denmark and Copenhagen, what you have to understand is that at the time a nation of some 4 million people, and so Copenhagen is the center of learning. So what they did is that they appointed an external Nordic, Swedish, Finnish, Norwegian, established empirical sociologists with international reputations to review, take a look at the department, and they decided that this is way too far gone. It's become this sort of Marxist hotbed of non-empirical, speculative, esoteric theorizing. And of course, the government was worried about training people who could analyze social data, Danish welfare state. There's a lot of these type of things that you need to have people who understand this. So they end up dismantling the sociology department for a couple of years and rebuilding it from scratch in the early 90s. And look, just fast forward to present day, it's one of the most impressive sociology departments that I can think of.
That's fascinating. So let me take some of those pieces apart to be sure I understand what happened. So there were two departments in sociology in Copenhagen that have been, let's say, captured by a particular ideology.
Good term, yeah.
An ideology that is sort of infamously not evidence-based. It has a certain self-replicating way of, done badly, certainly, Marxism can lead to this self-replicating cycle where everything proves itself without any kind of possibility of external impingement coming in to change the direction of the conclusions. And what interests me there is that two things. One is that the government cared enough to get involved. I want to know about how that happened, because we're seeing in the US, the government now caring, if that's the right word, very much about to get involved. But then it seems that they made a decision to get other experts in sociology to conduct the reviews. There wasn't just politicians taking it upon themselves to go in with a 2x4 and smash the place up. Rather, they got some experts together. And do you know what? How close to that are you, or do you know what happened? It was the 80s, I know.
Right.
But did the government did that board hire new people? They put those departments into receivership? What?
Yeah. So this is something that there's
the history.
I don't know the history in detail. I suspect it was definitely a sort of centrist, right, conservative government in Denmark at the time, which of course centrist government in Denmark means like it's somewhere in the left side of the Democratic Party. But nevertheless, I'm sure there had been myriads of complaints about this sort of a neglect of scientific integrity in this area. And of course, it's part of the Nordic, so I think it's a known thing. And I think there was a genuine concern, as I indicated, that this is a waste of resources and this could be an important thing. And sure enough, Denmark does have a very good social science tradition. So they were worried probably about that. I don't know how they decided, but I think it's legitimacy of having this sort of like part of the Nordic family. Some of them were based in America. Some of I think one of the academics, but I think they chose people who were represent the type of. So there was this the government chose, of course, people who represented the type of sociology that they. I think one of them was recently passed away, a Swedish sociology. I'm going to say Heikki Varis, a Finnish name, does this sort of welfare state research, and so on. So definitely not right-wing sociologists, but some sociologists who I think cared about concrete social science research,
right.
And I don't know too much about the hiring, but I just know they gradually built it. And like I said, there are some very, very excellent. I can tell you that this right now, there's a Christopher Carlson is a professor there, and I like him for a lot of reasons. He's won a lot of awards for methodological innovations, but he's also an editor of one hopeful sign in sociology. There's a journal called Sociological Science, and they are in the avant-garde of adhering to the open science principles of reproducibility and transparency and those type of things, which is very rare in sociology. So anyway, so that's a little side point, but that's as far as I know is what happened in Copenhagen by and large.
And it's interesting because you said that, as I understood you, that the government was concerned about those departments producing students with an education that could be useful to society and to themselves.
Absolutely.
And I also just want to mention that process of there being external experts evaluating the department, that's very familiar to me. I've been taught in the US for most of my life. Every 5 years or so, we would have, in different departments I was parts of, we'd have external examiners come in, external reviewers. They'd come in, they'd spend a few days talking to people. They would do some polling about research reputations of the people in the department. Then they'd write up a report, which would go to the administration. And the administration would typically choose half of the external examiners, and the department would choose half. But they all had to be from high-powered departments and well-respected people. So that kind of a process of departmental review, it goes on regularly, just in normal academic life. I think people often don't realize that. We often think that departments are just completely self-governing, do whatever they want to do, because so many of them do go bad. But there's this kind of interesting, already existing structure that, with some tweaking perhaps, could be made a bit more muscular, be made a bit more effective, could be made, there could be some work done to the selection procedure, the people doing the evaluating to actually maybe ask them questions like, do this department encourage people to make case with their evidence? Do they encourage intellectual humility? We can imagine a variety of ways in which what you would describe happening in the 80s could happen in contemporary universities widely.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lesson from this sort of the Copenhagen or Danish model, in the sense that there's a lot of talk about these days about this sort of tension between government intervention and the academic freedom, and I would argue that obviously, in a technical way, the Danish model, the Danish government violated, I guess, academic freedom in a sense that they unilaterally nominated chosen experts who adhere to this sort of a vision of sort of more concrete and practical and empirical sociology. So they could have chosen some other experts, right, who would have probably said, "Oh, they're doing great there with the post-Marxist theorizing type of thing." So there was this government intervention with a certain perspective, but I would argue that it's justified, and even in our contemporary situation, it's justified when there's sustained evidence of violating the mandate, violating the norms of good science.